Okay, NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 just wrapped up. So far, I would a quick summary. I would say one of the odd themes for this show was short. A lot of shortness going on for some reason. I mean, they were slotted to fill 3 hours, and they came up half an hour short. So it's like just some weird things going on. Our first match is Trent Seven versus Denis. Denis is a guy who's been out with an injury. He's coming back. He's looking to start take out some of the top guys. Trent Seven of Mustache Mountain being one of them. Early on, I'll try to make this as quick as I can, but Denis went for a quick big boot after the bell, but Trent Seven caught him and hit a short arm power bomb, and Denis then fought out of a turnbuckle bomb and then hit a crucifix bomb from that. At one point, basically the whole story of this match was Trent Seven trying to land the 7-star lariat, but Denis finding some way to get out of it. At one point, Denis got so desperate to try to hit one of his moves that he started to take off one of the turnbuckle pads. At that point, Seven came back, tried to hit the lariat again, and wound up sending himself into the exposed turnbuckle. And that knocked him enough for a loop that Denis got him, tried to hit a crucifix bomb into the exposed turnbuckle, but the ref blocked it. So Denis grabbed Seven and did the crucifix bomb over the top rope and into the barricade. Well, actually into a ring attendant who was then in the barricade. But yeah, that was a really vicious move. And then Denis hits the next stop driver for the 3 count and the victory. Like I said, this was a good match, but it was a little too quickly paced. It came across as kind of, I hesitate to say throwaway, but yeah, it felt a little throwaway. They did a good job with the time they were given. Nice setups for stuff, but it never seemed to quite follow through exactly. And that leads us into our second match, the triple threat match for the NXT UK Women's Championship. Kayla Ray versus Toni Storm versus Piper Niven. The unique wrinkle that they didn't quite mention going into this match is they were building up Piper Niven versus Kayla Ray, then Toni Storm inserted herself into it, and it was going to be a triple threat. And about a couple of weeks after they did that, Piper Niven had an episode of Bell's palsy, and they failed to mention that for some reason. I don't know why. You'd think that's something they would milk for these sorts of stories, but yeah, I guess she recovered enough in time that she was able to compete in the match. Early on, Toni Storm decked Kayla Ray right during the introduction sequences, and Niven hit Kayla Ray with a suicide dive and then hit cannonballs on the outside of the ring to both women. And then Niven broke up a tiger bomb with a crossbody, the Storm Zero. And Ray pulled out a chair from under the ring. They managed to set up a German suplex part where Toni Storm had the waist lock on Piper Niven, and then Kayla Ray super kicked. Piper Niven, which enabled the German suplex to be performed. At one point, Kayla Ray had a chance to put Toni Storm away. She put basically the chair around Storm's neck. I was going to do the stomp to crush her throat, but then Niven actually broke that up, and it was enough for Toni Storm to realize that she and Niven were still friends and that they still had each other's best intentions in mind. And they both teamed up on Ray. Unfortunately, that alliance did not last, and both women attacked Ray. Niven hit a Michinoku driver on Ray, but Storm broke up the pin. She literally stopped the ref from hitting the 3 count, and that caused more anger. Both women were fighting again. Ray hit a gory bomb on Niven. Storm broke that up. Storm hit the Storm Zero on, I believe, Kayla Ray. Again, Niven broke that up, but Storm came back and hit a pedigree on Niven, and then hit a frog splash, but then Ray super kicked Storm off of Niven and covered Piper Niven for the 3 count and the victory. A decent, like I said, a decent enough match. Unfortunately, like the other one, this one was way too short. There's just, there didn't seem to be enough time to want to tell a story here, and this was a problem with the match at the last TakeOver, where Kayla Ray and Toni Storm, where it seemed to end almost a little too quickly. Like, why were those matches sort of rushed? Again, you had 3 hours to fill. You had, again, your show ended up being a half an hour short. It just, yeah, it got a little strange is all. Okay, our next match is Jordan Devlin versus Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate. Right off the bat, there was a lot of the old British catch-as-catch-can style, so it's a lot of arm wringers and wrist blocks, and, you know, we're twerking and, we're not twerking, tweaking joints and manipulating everything. Devlin blocked a bop and bang attempt early on, and then Bate drop kicked Devlin out of the ring. Devlin hit a move to take Tyler Bate out, and then mocked the Mustache Mountain pose. Phone goes off, of course. Sorry. Bate countered a move and launched Devlin out of the ring again. Devlin countered a crossbody into a gut buster. Devlin locked on a surfboard that manipulated in kind of a rear chin lock maneuver. Eventually Bate fought out of that and did an airplane spin for about 2 minutes, followed that with a brain buster. Devlin hit a slingshot cutter over the top ropes. He went for a second one, but Bate blocked it, and both men hit the ring apron and tumbled out of the ring. But Bate hit the bop and bang right after Devlin hit a Spanish fly. Devlin then hit a super Spanish fly, but and followed it with the Devlin inside, but Bate kicked out. And then Bate hit the Tyler Driver 97 and hit a corkscrew splash for the 3 count and the victory. So this was a really good match. Unfortunately, I think this one went a little too long. Yeah, there's a lot of points where it's guys are rested in the middle of the ring. It's like, can we maybe pick this up a little? Like I said, there was a lot of... If you're not used to the catch-as-catch-can stuff, I can understand where you might even be turned off by it, but they did a decent job with the storytelling. It's just, again, there was a couple of odd lulls in this thing that maybe needed to be picked up a bit more. A lot of Devlin trying to hit the Devlin inside finisher, which also really doesn't help when you're constantly trying to hit it throughout the whole match. And that in turn takes us to the 4th match of the night. Day. The 4-way ladder match for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. The champions Gallus, that's Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, versus Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster, versus Zach Gibson and James Drake, the Grizzled Young Veterans, versus Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel of Imperium. That's a mouthful. Right off the bat, Gallus and Imperium were obviously... because Joe Coffey and Walter are the heads of their respective factions, so those two started brawling right off the bat. The Grizzled Young Veterans and Flash the Welshman fought in the ring, and James Drake got drop kicked by Mark Andrews out of the ring. Andrews Webster hit moonsaults onto Eichner. It took for a while for chairs, well, there were chairs in there too. It took for a while for a ladder to get put in the ring, and again, the odd theming of this night being short. There were points, multiple ladders were in the ring, and all the ladders were like way too short. Like, you know, if I could, this is the ring, the championships are like here, and the ladder is only going up to, I'd say, about here. So it's like none of the guys on there could reach it, you know. And I think I would say Wolfgang and Eichner were probably the 2 tallest, and you know they were like they had to probably stand on like the second to top rung of the ladder, which is really, really not safe to even get like fingertips on these things. Like, maybe you need to think these out a little bit. There was one ladder that was tall enough. At one point, there were even, like I said, there were 5 ladders in the ring, and all the teams had a guy on them. Andrews had a ladder that was bridged into the other, into 3 ladders, and then Flash Morgan Webster took a ladder and used it to kind of pin Zach Gibson up against the ladder so Webster could try to climb it. And that all got toppled over at one point. Gallus hit an Enziguri power slam combo on the Grizzled Young Veterans. They then brawled with the Welshmen for a bit, leading to a spot where I believe there was like both Welshmen, that's Andrews and Webster, were going to hit dueling sentons off the ladder, or stereo sentons off ladder onto 2 different tables. But as Flash Morgan Webster laid Mark Coffey on a table, it broke. So instead we got a dual swanton bomb off of the ladder onto Wolfgang through a table. It then looked like Imperium was going to finally get the championships. Marcel Bartel was just a bit away, but then he got lured into probably doing a... they were going to do something onto, I believe, one of the Grizzled Young Veterans, but then Wolfgang speared Eichner through a ladder and then enabled Coffey to knock Bartel off the ladder, and he climbed the ladder and pulled down the championships, so Gallus retained the championships. Like I said, overall, pretty good match. Again, not quite sure what the deal was with the ladder. Like, they did not set the ladders up very well at all, unfortunately. That was probably the one real drawback to it. It's still enjoyable. Still had enough high spots to cover up a lot of the problems. So overall, it was a really well done match. And that leads us into the main event for the evening. Well, it's evening in England. It's the NXT UK Championship Match. Walter putting the championship on the line against Joe Coffey of Gallus. It is kind of weird because they're trying to build, I guess they're trying to build Gallus and all up as being baby faces and even Joe Coffey, but they've been heels for so long, the crowd is still kind of booing them a lot. I mean, even here, the crowd was decidedly in Walter's favor, and Imperium are also supposed to be heels, so again, a little bit of confusion going on there. Coffey immediately tried to take the fight to Walter. Basically points out he discovered that Walter does not like to be hit, so he worked more on striking to prepare for the match. Striking, punching, kicking. Coffey dodged a big boot right after the bell. Coffey fought out to the outside of the ring. He hit a back suplex. Coffey hit a flying shoulder block over the ring barricade. Coffey hit a tornado DDT. At one point, Coffey hit I think it was a belly-to-back suplex, and Walter landed really awkwardly on his shoulder. Like, you could tell, it hurt him. Like, ooh. Like, hopefully he didn't, it didn't seem like he dislocated anything. He went on for the rest of the match pretty easily, but Coffey was doing well until he foolishly tried to get into a chop match with Walter. If you know anything about Walter, he throws the hardest chops in the business. And he was throwing ones that were cracking so loud the entire crowd fell silent. Like, you could hear there was a... he was just, oof. Walter locked on an STF, he then locked on a Boston Crab, he blocked a drop kick and locked on another STF, a missile drop kick I should say, and Coffey came back, he had a moonsault, and he was setting up for a kind of spear move in the ring, but Walter shooed him away and then tried to do a running drop kick but struck the ref and took him out. And that allowed Alexander Wolf of Imperium and Ilya Dragunov, who's been fighting alongside Gallus against Imperium, to hit the ring. Dragunov hit a move onto Wolf to sort of stop him from attacking Coffey, but in this process, it knocked Wolf back into Coffey, and Coffey wound up hurting his knee. At this point, a second ref had come down to the ring, and Walter powerbombed Coffey into the ring apron. He whipped him into the ring steps. Coffey came back and hit a belly-to-belly superplex basically off the top rope. Only got a 2 count on it. Coffey hit 2 the bells, which is discus lariat. But Walter came back. He hit 2 power bombs, then locked on a sort of modified anaconda vice hold. So his arms were being driven into Coffey's cheek, and eventually Coffey just tapped out. overall, really good match. They worked the interference well. They told a good story. Like, this is a match that was the proper length. So, yeah, it definitely worked a lot better. And they definitely plotted this a lot better than everything else in the match, everything else on the show. Like, the matches weren't bad. They just all seemed to be kind of off a little bit. Anyway, as that happened and Imperium came down to the ring to celebrate, the Undisputed Era hit the ring, took out everyone in Imperium, and then all ganged up on Walter, leading to the Era standing triumphant because the next big show is Worlds Collide, and that's sort of the main event there. I do also have to wonder if this means we're going to get a champion versus champion match at TakeOver Portland. Maybe. I mean, they're facing each other at Worlds Collide. If Imperium comes back and wins that, could we maybe start getting some kind of cross-branding type deals? Do we get a unification match maybe? Who knows? Definitely leads to some intriguing points. So, like I said, overall, the odd theme of the show is short. Like, the early matches, the first two were way too short, especially the Women's Championship match. I think that was a real drop point, for lack of a better term. I'm sorry, I'm kind of winging this part here. I'm trying to think of the words, and it's not coming to my head. Anyway, like I said, the women's match was really kind of a disappointment. I thought they could have done so much more with this. Maybe, again, because of Piper Niven's Bell's palsy diagnosis, they didn't want to do anything too stressful, but still, it didn't quite... It really fell well short of expectations. I know all three women are better than that. Again, the Tyler Bate Jordan Devlin match was fine, but again, it went on a little too long. The ladder match, again, some of the spots just came across as maybe a little too clunky. Part of the other problem is you have two teams, the Grizzly Young Veterans and Imperium, who are very sort of old school and don't want to do ladder matches, and now they're forced to do a ladder match. So, again, it didn't seem to quite gel together as much as it really should have. The main event was great. The main event was spectacular. Like I said, matches weren't necessarily bad, but the main event did really help bring this show up. I'm going to be giving NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 an A-. The main event really did kind of save this for me. So, yeah. Okay, so the next wrestling show is going to be Worlds Collide. That's on the 25th. I'll probably have that up on the 26th. Obviously, the next movie review is going to be Bad Boys for Life, and then The Turning is the next one planned. The next random trade review, I just put up the random trade review for Thor Volume 2. The next one after that is Aquaman Time and Tide. That's all going to be on Royal Rumble weekend. Obviously, that culminates in the Royal Rumble, which the review for that will be up the Monday after the Royal Rumble. Okay, see you all next time. Hey guys, remember to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/SleepyTimeForCat Productions, where you can help me expand my wrestling coverage to stuff beyond WWE, NXT, and the occasional AEW free show.